Łukasz Byczyński, and in this talk I would like to show you how to easy build backend UIs with Vaadin 8. So it's ancient technology, but I think it's very useful when you're trying to add some UI functionality to our backend service. So a few words about backend UI. What is that? For me, backend UI is slightly different than normal front-end UI because it does not host many users, so scalability is not key requirement, and also backend UIs app lives much more longer and features don't change very often. So the key word for me is maintainability. I want to write this application, go back to my normal activity, for example, writing microservice, REST endpoints, or something like that. And after I back to the project, I want to easily add new features and, for example, have migration process to new version very simple. So all this feature Vaadin has out the box, and it's very easy to use. Let's talk about some background. What is Vaadin? Vaadin originally was called Milestone Library. The first version was used internally as ATML, former name of this company. Around version 3, in 2002, framework was released to community. Next version, ATML Toolkit 4, comes with concept single-page rendering, and then with version 5, the client-side engine was rewritten to use Google Web Toolkit. And the name Vaadin 6 was built in 2009. Framework and company was renamed. Version 6 introduced a lot of useful things, for example, add-ons directory, plugins for Redis, and the majority of framework itself. So, for example, many components there was initially released in add-on dictionary. They later was released as part of the original framework. So next major release, Vaadin 7, introduced some features like push, parameterized theming. You can easily theme your application with changing only few parameters. It's based on the SAS preprocessor. And the main thing in Vaadin 7 was web orienting. So it means in previous version of Vaadin, I have only one page for session, and with version 7, this changed, and Vaadin introduced concept of object called UIs, so you can have multiple browsers tab in one session. Nowadays, it's very obvious thing, but a few years ago, was easy task. And last version, Vaadin 8, released this year, comes with completely redesigned binding API because previous version of API was released in days before Java generics. It's very old API, outdated and complicated to use. So now Vaadin works very fluently with Java 8 features like Lambda strings and so on. So here is Vaadin framework application architecture overview. At the top, we have a web browser where we have a client-side engine rendering. This engine is responsible for rendering DOM and HTML to the user and communicate with the server side. So when I have a button, when I click on, so this message is sent to the servlet, then from Vaadin servlet to the UI component and UI, and in UI to the server side companion object to this client side button, and then to my UI logic. And in this UI logic, I can communicate with the bottom stack, is the backend, for example. And this is overview. If you want to know how it works under the hood, you can go to the official Vaadin site and find great documentation and book. All this information is described very detailed there. And okay, so for this purpose of this presentation, I prepared simple admin UI. So this is some sketches. First is the dashboard, very simple, with left on the sidebar. Right is the content placeholder. And here is our simple view for the contacts. Let it be. On the left side, we have grid when we load the items from the database, and on the right is editor. Okay, I switched for a second to the ED, and I want to notice that I'm going to use Vaadin Designer. Unfortunately, this add-on is the part of the commercial package. But if you want to see how this UI looks in pure Java, after presentation I will upload this source code to the GitHub and you can compare. So let's go. Just a moment. I must save the. Okay. So. Before presentation, I already wrote some parts of this application. So this is our view, and I will add to this view my contact view. So let's create this design. So with Vaadin Designer, I can easily create design by taking the components from the sidebar and put into the this placeholder. So first I change this layout to the split panel to allow user to change size of the left of the right side dynamically. So next I create left side layout with the grid and filter fields. So I put components. Okay. So I have grid, and I should select DTO object for that. So okay, and let's name this field. Okay, and editor works. Editor should use form layout. This is the layout designed for use with the form data. Okay. So let's add some caption. I can add style which comes with default Vaadin theme. Let's put some fields. Okay, I have design, and only thing I should do right now is create Java object. Which extends this design and implements interface view to work with Vaadin navigator. And I need to add Spring Glue. Okay. And let it be the default view of application. So, okay, let's run. Oh, there's name, sorry. And we have first iteration of our design with only a few lines of Java. So let's switch to the full implementation of this editor, because I don't have so much time. Okay, let's start application. And I have working editor with data. So when I click on the item is binned to the editor. I can edit. For example, when I save the grid refresh data, I can add new items. So it's easy to do that. And let's see how it's work under the hood. So this is the only UI logic, so we don't bother with infrastructure level or repository or something like that. So first thing we should need to implement is the binder. Binder is the component which binds Java beans to the UI fields. And I only need to select the fields. For example, this field is the name. I can add some validation. First have validation based on string length, and specify getter and setter for this field, and the same for the rest of fields. It's all. Next, I need to load the data to grid. So grid, I need to specify a data provider for grid, who has two methods. First method, it returns a number of items in result sets. And second method is read the items, specific amount of items. So when I scroll to down and have repository where is the million of items, I only read selected amount of item to render the page. Next action is the item click editor. It's the mechanic behind how to bin is binned to the UI fields. The only things is I need to set up a bin. I do here conversion because contact query DTO is immutable object, and Vaadin requires mutable object. So I need to convert to temporary object. And next, I have logic behind edit discard button. So edit is the simple, enables edit, but discard logic removes bin from the binder and reloads selected item in grid to the editor. So when I, for example, click on here and click edit, and it works perfectly. And last part is save button logic. If binder tells me is all fields are valid, I can get bin and save to the repository and refresh the grid. So it's all only almost 200 lines of pure Java code. I have working editor and solution, and don't touch HTML and other things. Maybe if I a backend developer who not feels very familiar with front-end technologies, I can create backend UI very fastly. Okay. So I have few tips for you when you will write this application. First is renderless component. Is general good advice to not over-design your UI, because if you put a lot of components to the UI, you have achieved a very sluggish experience. Next, don't mix business logic with UI code. It's Java. It's very easy, but try to separate UI code for business logic in separate module, and UI code should only do UI. If you mix this, you leads the way to easy have troubles with maintenance of this code. Use Navigator. This is the great feature of Vaadin to modularize and separate application logic, and keep in view and UI components only necessary data. So, for example, if you want to cache something, don't do this on the UI level. Try to do at integration level or something like that. You can then share this cache between different UIs. And the last thing is measure and profile your app. This is general advice before any optimization. So this is the end.
Any questions?
Is from my company.
Hey Łukasz, thanks for a great presentation. I would like to ask you one question about how it's difficult to add some kind of custom component to this solution. I mean, always my boss, he likes fancy things. He likes pretty graphs. And how it's difficult to add the new one widget style to this application?
Yeah, you can write on widget set, but it's very hard. But from version Vaadin 7, they introduce abstract JavaScript component, and you can put to this component any JavaScript code and call the JavaScript code entirely from Java. So it's the easy to compose, for example, jQuery components or something like that into the Vaadin applications.
Anyone else? 3, 2, 1. Okay. Thank you once again.